cultures, it's always important to highlight the particular period and historical context. And again, you see, what is distinctive about Africans in the New World is that we had to make ourselves based on our African heritage under modern conditions. And modern conditions have to do with marketplaces in which labor is sold as commodities. It has to do with nation states and ideologies, modern ideologies like nationalism. It has to do with bureaucracies and impersonal rules and regulations that govern behavior based on various elites vis-a-vis those who work in those bureaucracies. All these take on distinctively modern forms. That's one reason why when we talk about jazz, jazz is a thoroughly modern form. It is an African response of making new Africans under modern conditions with European instruments, but Africans playing them. Something distinct, you see. And so the languages that we go back to, those are under very different conditions. We can still build on those. And that's the real challenge, because I do believe, this is where I agree with both Professor Clarke as well as Professor Sante and others, that the African heritage is a fundamental component of New World Africans accepting their humanity and not feeling as if it's something they have to prove to others.
Yes, indeed.
As soon as you think you have to prove it to others, you're accepting white supremacist terrain upon which you define yourself. It is a losing battle. Because you already defined the terrain to be a losing one. But at the same time, that definition will take place for young people, the latter part of the 20th century, which is postmodern now, the globalization that we talked about before. And it's no accident that young black people have done what? They have created a hip-hop culture, which is a response to the disintegration and decomposition of the black family and black community, so young people will socialize and acculturate themselves by building on the linguistic virtuosity as well as the musical tradition of the past. And they do it by means of what? The most postmodern high-tech technology. Right? They might go back to a Sly or James Brown or Isley Brothers in terms of the rhythm. Right. That's my generation. It would be nice if the younger generation had an Isley Brothers. Right. They don't have one. It'd be nice if they had a George Clinton. They don't have one. It'd be nice if they had a Sly. They don't have geniuses like that. Babyface is a genius, but he ain't no Sly. All right, Prince is a genius, but he ain't no Curtis Mayfield when we on one day. What they lost was this. As the black community and black family underwent disintegration, the networks of apprenticeship that had sustained high levels of musicianship and craftsmanship in the subculture of black musicians also began to decline. And so you ended up with these brilliant little brothers and sisters with very little exposure to music, going to machines, going back to a tradition, but still creating something new. But hip-hop is brand new. That's tremendous breakthrough, but it's under conditions of a decline of apprenticeship for musicianship. It's no accident you got a Wynton Marsalis who is backward looking, because he looks at the decline of musicianship and says, we got to go back to the genius, Louis himself. That's a conservative move. I don't believe jazz ought to be backward looking. I think it ought to be both backward and forward looking, so I got to struggle with Wynton. But I understand he's responding to a hip-hop culture that itself is not exposed to those high levels of apprenticeship that one would have seen in Georgia where Professor Clarke was in terms of the blues singers coming out of that church and the ways in which they learned how to engage in multi-layered vocalization that would allow an appreciation of a Sarah Vaughan. Ain't no Sarah Vaughan these days. No, sir. Anita's tough, but she ain't Sarah. Everybody know that. And I'm not saying this to put folks down. This is a particular reading of a particular moment in life of a black community which is in partial decline and decomposition. We can bounce back. We've had moments before when this was the case in black music and black culture and so forth. But it depends on what we do.
Yes, sir. And what do we do? I just want to see it because...
Well, one of the things we do is part of that historical continuity that you talked about, that sense of history that I was talking about this afternoon, that Professor Clarke has been alluding to, but in a critical manner that keeps track of the class gender sexual orientation as we go back.
No question.
Because each and every one of those groups in the past has played a fundamental role in contributing to the vitality and health of the black community.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. That's what
ain't no doubt about that. You can't talk about black music in church and downplay black gay brothers.
Come on, right?
You can't do it. You can act like he might not be. But he is speaking to your soul when he plays that piano. And you don't give a damn what he did that night before.
That's right, brother, that's right.
It's true.
You'll preach a little bit, brother.
No, I ain't gonna
Don't get loose.
No, that's true. That's true, bro.
That's all right.
No, it's real, and that's certainly true with the women as well, you know. Very much so. So this matter, again, I mean, I like what Professor Clarke said when he just said, let's just deal with the reality and not deny what has been and is going on. We can't conceive of black culture without James Baldwin and Auntie Lois. Or Alexa Hughes. Or maybe Billie Holiday. You can't conceive of black culture without it. I couldn't be sane without Jimmy Baldwin. You know, I might not kiss the same folk he kissed, but I can't remain sane without his production. He cut that teeth.
Go ahead.
But I'm sorry, go on.
But that's good. No. Good to go.
Very often we forget to remember what comes down to us through the historical memory wavelength. Having traveled a great deal in Africa and listened well, I've encountered the origin of the spiritual and the blues being sung in Africa, with Africa not knowing exactly what the hell they were doing.
All right.
I was at a wake in Africa and among the God people, and they were singing the tune of the spiritual certain laws, but the singing in their language. And once I acted like a silly American. Why did you people get that song? Why did you people get that song? Finally, they took me to that king called the God Manchel. He said, you know, Mr. Clarke, according to my information, your people left here about 400 years ago. I said, yes. And according to our tradition, we've been singing this song about 500 years. He looked down his nose and said, now, Mr. Clarke, why did your people get this song? After that, I just listened and tried to understand. I've seen African riverboat captains passing each other, and they would raise a hymn. One would say one verse, one would say the other verse. I've seen men flying in the field in Alabama do the same thing. One they were doing it in African language, the other one was doing it in English language. They was forced on it. Years later in Chicago, I had opportunity to attend a rehearsal with a great blind singer, Ray. And I said that, you know one thing, why they call you the genius, that whine in your singing, that particular flavor, that's the wail of those slave ships coming down through ancestral memory, down through the years, reasserting itself. He shook his head and said, where did this crazy cat come from? I wish I could see him. What I was saying didn't mean a damn thing to him. And yet, the man is a genius.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime a man sings Georgia on my mind and wants me to